edition of hashtag AskGSM, a new Monday mailbag video where we'll be answering your questions that you send in via Twitter and Facebook on a weekly basis. If you'd like to send in a question, make sure to follow me on Twitter at @Sam_us_GSM and like my Facebook page at GrahamGSMMatthews. Submit your question with the hashtag AskGSM and I'll feature it right here in this video. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce any names. I am terrible with pronouncing names and whatnot, so I apologize in advance for that. In addition to that as well, all of these questions were sent in last Tuesday, so if you want to get your question in the video, make sure to send it in early. But nonetheless, here are the questions that were sent in last Tuesday for this week's inaugural edition of the Mailbag Monday video. First question was sent in by Jaslyn Iawanchia. What is it about CM Punk that made you a fan? I initially became a fan of CM Punk in March of 2010 because of the whole Straight Edge Society thing that he was doing at the time. It wasn't until July of later in that year that I became a full-fledged fan of CM Punk for his humor that he incorporated into his promos. I believe it was almost exactly 3 years ago that he did that segment with Big Show when they were promoting the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match, and he was still wearing the mask at the time, and it was from that point forward that I started to notice the humor that he started to put into his promos. He was a little more laid back as a heel. I didn't mind him when he was a babyface in 06, 07, 08, 09, etc., etc., but it was really when he turned heel in mid-2009 and early 2010 and into the summer of 2010 that I really became a fan of CM Punk because of his humor and the Straight Edge Society gimmick that he was doing at the time. Next question was from Benzie Guyman, from also via Facebook. Should the Wyatt family battle the Shield at all or remain separate from them? A lot of people are wondering if they should immediately feud with the Shield upon their debut tonight on Raw. I don't think that should be the case. I don't want the Shield to turn face anytime soon. I don't want them to break up anytime soon. I don't want the Wyatt family to be face upon their debut either. So with that being said, Mick Foley also suggested the idea of having the Shield versus the Wyatt family at WrestleMania 30. As cool as that might be, I think that might be a little soon. It depends on where the Shield is come WrestleMania 30, but as of right now, that is not something I want to see. Both are great heel stables. If you kind of keep them separate, the Shield is kind of in the upper mid-card right now with the US and tag titles respectively. And if you keep the Wyatt family maybe in the main event scene, I mean, they've been hyping the hell out of these guys. So I anticipate a big storyline for the Wyatt family upon their debut. So maybe down the line, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Maybe if the Shield turns face, it's already massively over as it is. But right now, definitely not. Keep them separate as much as possible. Similar to how Punk and Lesnar were kept separate for the longest time before finally clashing a few weeks ago on Raw. So you can build up the tension, build up the big fight feel for when they do eventually have a showdown later down the line. Up next, another via Facebook question from CJ Blaze. What is your favorite WWE match of the PG era? Easy, CM Punk versus John Cena for the WWE Championship at Money in the Bank 2011, Chicago, Illinois at the Allstate Arena. Hands down, my favorite match in WWE history. Again, I've only been a WWE fan from April 2008 on, so for my favorite match, I had been watching earlier. I hadn't seen all the matches from prior to when I became a wrestling fan. So if I was to see a match maybe prior to April 2008, or a match that I haven't seen, then maybe that would become my favorite match. But the only reason why Punk and Cena from Money in the Bank 2011 is my favorite match because I watched it live. Favorite feud of 2011. Those guys just have amazing chemistry together. Their excellent match from earlier this year in February on Raw was also fantastic as well. But I would have to say Punk versus Cena from Money in the Bank a few years ago is by far my favorite match, not only the PG era, but in WWE history. Next up from Mike Bueno, would you like to see the American Badass Undertaker return? Now that's an interesting question. Some people would have rather seen that return than the current incarnation of The Undertaker at the old school Raw from a few months ago when he initially made his return to the WWE. Unfortunately, that did not come to fruition. Maybe down the line I would like to see that. I don't know if it would suit well with the PG era and after being the current incarnation of The Undertaker for nearly 9 years now from WrestleMania 20 on. I don't know if many people would recognize it or if it would fit in well with the current product, especially since he's winding down his career and may as well might well retire at WrestleMania 30 next year, regardless of who his final opponent may be. So I wouldn't say it's all that likely, but would I like to see it back? Absolutely. Even if it was a one-off thing. Maybe it makes its return at WrestleMania 30 next year, only for the entrance. Who knows? But yes, that would definitely be something that I would love to see down the line. Um, Also up next from Facebook, Andre Boss Green asked, "What do you think the wrestling world would be like if WWE and ECW joined forces to get WCW out of the way?" He also continued on, "Do you think ECW would have been on the same level as WWE?" I think that did happen at one point. I believe ECW worked with WWE at one point to give ECW some more promotion and vice versa. I don't think it was necessarily to drive WCW out of business, but because WCW was at such a higher level than ECW at the time, WWE kind of worked with ECW to kind of get WCW out of the way. I don't think that was the reason for WWE's demise whatsoever. I'm sorry, WCW's demise, but I don't think WWE and ECW would have been on the same level. There's a huge financial gap between the two companies, or at least there was. So I don't think they ever would have been on the same level, and hence why WWE ended up buying ECW anyway. But they did work together for a short period of time to give both promotions a bit of promotion, to kind of knock WCW out of the way, which was kind of flourishing at the time. So had they worked together a bit more and their primary goal was to get WCW out of the way, then I would have seen them maybe take a bigger role in the wrestling world. But because they were taken out shortly after WCW was bought and the huge financial gap between the two companies, I don't think they would have ever been on the same level, ECW and WWE, that is. So up next is the questions that were asked via Twitter from @Blinzenterprise. Again, I apologize for the mispronunciation. How happy are you that Natalya and Tyson Kidd are married after over a decade? Very happy for the happy couple that is Natalya and Tyson Kidd. They've been together, as you said, for well over a decade now. They've known each other for many, many years. So glad, very happy to see them finally tie the knot. And I believe that will be airing on the Total Divas show that will be premiering this summer or this month, I believe this July. So I'm looking forward to watching that. That'd be cool if they kind of incorporated that in the storyline. I know Tyson Kidd is out with an injury right now, and he might not be back for quite a few months, but I am happy to see them finally get married after the longest time. Next question was asked by AGS WWE. What mid-carder do you think will be a main eventer by WrestleMania 30? Very good question. In the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match from this Sunday, there are many guys that I could see main eventing. Not necessarily main eventing like it being the main event of WrestleMania, but could be a top tier player come WrestleMania 30. Because remember, Jack Swagger was losing to enhancement talent in late 2012 and went on to become in one of the main events of WrestleMania 30 for the World Heavyweight Championship against Del Rio. So I could see that with a few guys. Wade Barrett, if he wins the Money in the Bank ladder match this Sunday. Dean Ambrose, easily. He's another guy that I could see as a top star. He's the current United States champion. But I could see him elevated to a top tier position come WrestleMania 30, if the Shield breaks up or if he goes for a world championship. I don't know about Cesaro. I see a lot of potential in him. I don't think he's going to be a main event guy come WrestleMania 30. But also Damian Sandow and Cody Rhodes as well. Almost a lot of people in the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match, I could definitely see being top tier main event players come WrestleMania 30. Again, not necessarily the main event of WrestleMania, but maybe in contention for the World or WWE Championship. Also, Curtis Axel is another guy I see a lot of potential in. He's improving quite a bit lately since he's been resurrected, so to speak, as Curtis Axel from a few months ago. So I could see WWE pushing him to the moon to WrestleMania 30 as well. Up next from @HeelMcGarry, do you think the CM Punk Lesnar feud could last all the way to WrestleMania 30? I do think it could. I think it has the potential to. I don't think it will, however. I think they'll have their one-off match at SummerSlam, maybe a rematch at Survivor Series. And I mean, look at it this way. If we can get 3 matches out of Triple H versus Brock Lesnar, not a bad feud. I enjoyed the storytelling, but the matches weren't all that fantastic. So if we can get 3 matches out of those guys and have that feud go on for over a year, I certainly think they can do the same thing for CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar, because I have faith that their match is going to be fantastic once they clash at SummerSlam, or supposedly. We're not exactly sure yet. It hasn't been confirmed, but it has all been but confirmed at this point in time. So I do think if they drag it out a little bit, especially with Paul Heyman being on television, they can have Punk and Heyman feud in the meantime while Lesnar is gone. Maybe throw in Curtis Axel or RVD, and then have the rematch between Lesnar and Punk come WrestleMania 30. I think that'd be fantastic. And up next, this is kind of the last 2 questions. I'll kind of mold them together. @2000 Awesome asks, who do you think the new general manager of Raw should be? And also Ali Kayori, again I apologize for mispronouncing that. Do you think Vicky Guerrero should be the new permanent general manager for Raw? These are kind of the same questions, so I'll kind of answer it in one. I do think Vicky Guerrero should be moved out of the GM position. She's been GM of Raw and SmackDown for far too excuse me, dating back to 2007. So I don't think she should be the new permanent Raw general manager. I think she should be moved out of that position back in a manager role. Maybe have Brad Maddox take over, have one of the McMahons take over, have it seem more legitimate since they control a majority of the company anyway. But I do think she should be moved out of that position. Who do I think should be the new Raw general manager for permanently on a permanent basis? Again, like I said before, maybe Brad Maddox, maybe bring up an old familiar face, someone like a Stone Cold who they had about 10 years ago as the sheriff of Raw. William Regal, I'm a huge fan of him. I don't see him becoming Raw general manager again anytime soon, but I think that'd be awesome if they put him back in that role after that ginormous amount of heat that he garnered during that point in time. I'm not exactly sure. Brad Maddox is the only guy that comes to mind aside from McMahon, who was already controlling the company anyway. So maybe have Brad Maddox as the new permanent Raw GM, but Vicky Guerrero has to go tonight on Raw. Not a fan of hers as in the current GM position. I mean, sure, she garners a lot of heat, but she's been in the GM position for far too long now. Not even dating back to this past October, but dating back to, like I said before, 2007 when she was the GM of SmackDown from 07 to 08. Then she was the GM of Raw in 09. She was also the assistant GM for SmackDown in 2011. So yeah, they need to move her out of these positions and have her become more of a manager again for someone who needs it. So I think that will wrap up today's round of questions and I botched that one. Hashtag AskGSM. Make sure that if you want to send in a question, follow me on Twitter at @SAVE_US_GSM or like my Facebook page at GrahamGSM Matthews with the hashtag AskGSM and with the potential possibility of your question getting on the show. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe as well and enjoy your rest of your week. And this is GSM signing out. Till next time, guys.